What's up guys, Don't Even Try here, and today we are back with a new build video. It's been a while since I've made a video, even more a build video, but I thought that since I have a new rig, I have a new place of my own, I have all brand new stuff, I thought we could build this on camera. I'm super proud of it. This is by far my best model, and I hope you guys will enjoy it because I'm proud of it. I'm extremely proud of it. So, first thing first, this kit tells you to start by the construction of the hull. It's not that complicated. It's a multi-part hull, but since Tamiya engineering is just the greatest thing that's ever befallen us human race, the thing went together like this. I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna skip over most of the building part because there's nothing much to say. It just goes together real quick. I then arrived to the wheels. So what I did for the wheels is I kept them separated from the hull, not to attach them, because I wanted my vehicle to be extremely muddy. I wanted that thing to get seen action. So for weathering the lower part of the hull, I decided to get them out, just to ensure that it would be easier to paint and weather separately. Now we arrive to the tracks. For real, I hate building Lincoln length tracks. I absolutely despise it. I much rather have rubber bands. I know I'm gonna get crucified for saying this, but I'm a big fan of rubber bands, and this time the thing went together flawlessly. Super easy to build. The sag is absolutely amazing. Everything works perfectly. Tamiya, I'm in love with you. Tamiya, I'm in love with you. So, after attaching the lower and upper hull together, I attached some details on it: tow cable, shovel, pickaxe, so the headlights and everything. One thing to be aware in particular: keep the front, like there's a thing that goes on the front plate, keep that removable. I didn't. I should have, because there's a small window on this that in real life is used for the driver not to get wet when the Sheridan is crossing bodies of water, because the Sheridan is amphibious. So keep that piece removed and paint it separately. I didn't. It turned out okay. I don't mind it, whatever, but be aware of that. So after assembling all of this, I start working on the turret, and there's one thing that I found strikingly similar to the Sheridan turret. It is the turret of those tripods in Steven Spielberg's The War of the World. They look strikingly similar. Am I the only one who sees this? After that, I went on detailing the turret once the upper and lower parts were assembled with the gun. One thing to keep in mind was to keep the commander's cupola separable. You can build everything that's on the cupola, but keep the cupola itself separable. There's a couple of glass blocks that need to be put on, and you don't want them to be painted. You want them to stay transparent because, you know, they're vision blocks. And so what I did is kept it separately and painted it, did everything I needed to do on it, and at the last possible moment I glued it in place. And as a result, I have perfectly good glass blocks on my cupola, which is not something I usually get with my other builds because sometimes I get lazy. Do you get lazy? I get lazy lots of times. Another thing that you should look out for is building these smoke launchers. Be very careful. Take the right number for the right piece. Go one by one. Build them one by one. They can be a bit tricky. They're super good looking. The detail is insanely good. But be very mindful of what piece you glue with what thing and where they go in the end. So stay on track with what you do. And other than that, I decided to have the searchlight uncovered by the canvas because you have two options. Well, three. No searchlight, the searchlight without a canvas cover, and the searchlight with a canvas cover. I decided not to go with the canvas cover, but still have the searchlight because it does look very cool. And that allowed me to add a small cable that's included in the kit, which is made out of rubber, and that big nice lens that you put again at the strict end of the build, and it gives the Eye of Sauron. So now we get to the interesting part. We are going to paint our model. First thing first, I always do this. I prime, or some could say pre-shade, the old tank in black. Why do this? Mainly because it creates some fake shadows. If you missed a spot somewhere with your paint, you have black paint to cover it. So it can, in the end, you can pass it as a fake shadow. It also creates a nice surface for other paints because black has very good surface covering properties, and in general, black is the best paint to paint on. So now, the best part, in my opinion, of a whole build is the painting process. I decided not to go with pre-shading this time, which consists of painting the whole thing black and inside of the panels painting white, so with a light coat you'd have color variation. This time I went with post-shading, which consists of, here you can see, a first coat of paint that's a solid coat of the main color, which in this case I used olive green by Tamiya. After that, I went on the surfaces, the top surfaces. I went over them with the same paint but with a drop of white in it, mixed in the bunch. And I do this only on the top surfaces, the most visible place where the sun would shine on. And I try to keep my paint inside of the panels, so I can still have sort of a fade in it. And after this, at the very end, I go again, I add another drop of white paint, and I go to over the even higher surfaces, such as the very top of the searchlight. You can't, it's very hard to explain. At the very top of that small box, the very top of those ammo boxes, that fuel canister, the very top of this exhaust, which I assume is the exhaust. And sometimes I really likely go over some other surfaces just to create some tonal variation. The goal of this technique is really tonal variation, and I'm never going back to pre-shading. Post-shading is the GOAT. I decided to keep this part of the video non-accelerated so you can really see the technique, but again, I'm gonna repeat myself. Only inside of the panels, so you can have a nice fade. On the slanted side, you can try to have a nice fade going from the bottom, the darkest on the bottom, and on top have the lightest color. I can English, yes. But really, the main point, dye shall take thy time. Rule number 1, you take your time. Rule number 2, you thin your paint. The thinner, the better. Well, not exactly. But you get where I'm getting. You get where I want to go for it too. Really take your time. It's way better to take your time than to rush it. So now we're at the decals. Pay attention, because Tamiya decals are on the thicker side. They're workable, they're very good, but they are rather thick. So what I do for the decals, I soak them in warm water, not boiling, warm water for 10 to 12 seconds. I set it aside for whatever time I need to prepare the surface of my vehicle. To prepare the surface of my vehicle, first of all, gloss coat. I always put a gloss coat because it makes laying down the decal much easier. So gloss coat. After that, once it's fully dried, put the decal in the water, get it out. Micro sole and micro set. These are the things you need. You first start by micro set, which is the blue bottle. You put some on the area where you want your decal to go. You slide your decal on, well, where it's supposed to be. Take a cotton bud. You remove the excess by pressing down with a rolling motion, and then once the decal is dried, you come over it with micro sole, which is the red bottle. I always mix the two of them. And don't be scared if your decals has ripples in them. It's gonna set back exactly the way it's supposed to be, and it's gonna help conform to what you need. But take your time again. Take your time. There's plenty of tutorials on YouTube that are much better than my explanations. So look at them. Now we're at the chipping. Easy. I take the base color, add even more white to it, so it's even lighter than the post-shading coats. I take a sponge, tear it apart, and I dip it in the paint, remove the excess as much as possible, and lightly go all over the place, adding chipping where the crew would walk, where chipping would occur. I wanted mine to be pretty beaten up, and I think I achieved that result pretty nicely. So yeah, why a lighter color, a lighter mix of the main color? Because usually chips aren't always to bare metal, especially on olive green, olive drab. So so that will imitate the initial layer of chipping which occurs. After that, on the bigger chips that you made, you can go on in with a dark rusty color, such as in my case I mixed red, brown, and dark gray, which created a nice rusty color. And I went inside of the bigger chips with a brush to simulate the bare rusty metal of the vehicle. And now we're at my favorite part of the build, because I finally I managed to do it correctly. I made a wash. I gave the thing a wash and it worked. So, for a wash, you gloss coat the entire thing over the decals again. And I took a fine brush, the AK dark brown wash for green vehicle, and I went inside of all the panel lines, and you go inside. Don't be afraid of making some spillage. The gloss coat will help the wash do a capillary reaction, which means it's gonna just flow right inside the panel. But if, let's say, it doesn't really do what it's supposed to, just go and straight up brush it all over the panel. Once it's cured, once it's dry to the touch, you take a cotton bud and lightly fade the line until you remove the excess. There's plenty of tutorials on YouTube, you just have to look up. But I like fading my lines because it creates, again, more color variation in your paint. And look at this, all the color variation. I'll set up pictures now, but oh my god, I did it. I did it. Now we arrive at a bit less funny part. I tried the Vallejo mud with grass for the model. No, don't buy that thing, because it dries. It looks like actual mud when it comes out of the pot, but it dries completely transparent, and you're just left with grass bits. I might not have used it properly, but I'm never gonna use it again, because it's not what I wanted. I'm sure the other Vallejo muds are perfect, but this time, So what I ended up doing is removing it from the tracks. I kept it on the hull, and so just to keep its volume. And I've added AK muds on top of it to camouflage it. And now it was time for some fun. I have added a metric fuck ton of mud splashes, because naturally tracks, you know, they run, and they throw mud all over the back of the vehicle. So I've added a ton of mud, full of splatters. Some bits on the front, but never the same quantity as at the back. How I do this, I basically took some AK dry mud, dark mud on my brush, loaded it, take a small skewer and bloop, 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 flip it exactly where I want it to be. So that would be wherever mud would be splattered. So on the side of the hull, especially at the rear, and a bit on the front. So now I arrive at the bit more cringy part, because usually I use a round template, you know, those big plastic sheets with a shit ton of circles of different sizes. I use them to mask my wheels and have a neat, you know, road wheel. I lost it. I have no clue where I left it, so I went free-handed. And in my defense, I knew the wheel was going to be covered in mud splashes. So, alright, fine. Alright, fine. It's a dark color anyway. Olive green is pretty dark once it's painted, so I went with it, and you can't even tell. And nearing the completion of the model, I am adding mud splatter on the road wheels and on the inside of the tracks to blend it in, because a simple solid black track would not happen in real life. So mud splatter on the tracks, and yeah. And after painting the white stripe on the barrel, the model was complete.